Good day, everyone. Welcome to our next victim. This radio is a Packard-Bell 5R1. It's my pretty in pink radio. This radio came in different colors. It's an all-American 5 radio by design, and it was produced in 1946 and 47. RadioMuseum.org says, and it's got some cracks in it as you can see. Radio Museum says that it's Bakelite. They were Bakelite. This is no way is this Bakelite. This is a plastic radio. So let's take it apart. Okay, so let's take a look. This thing has obviously been modified. Here there's two electrolytic capacitors, and they've obviously been changed. And you can see they've been kind of glued on there a little bit. And this little capacitor right here is new. And so that's been changed at some point. This resistor looks really clean too. It may have been replaced also. And then, you know, these ceramic caps that we don't normally, you figure are always good. When I feel the surface of these, they're nice and smooth, except for this one. And it looks rough. I'm not sure that'll show up on the camera or not, but where these guys just feel, I'll call them normal. This is a really rough surface, and it's like it's got some junk on the top that's bubbled up or something. I don't know. We'll take a look at that. The other thing is, you know, these whoever got in here before didn't bother to replace these older capacitors, and if I can get the radio to work, I'll leave them if it'll work without changing any of these, but we'll see. There's one under here. You know, we'll see if those are done for and it's time for them to be replaced. Then the only other thing, I'll try and do this. Let's see if I can do this. So, you know, when we took it apart, we noticed, if I can do this, that this wire had come loose that goes from the antenna to the tuning coil or to the tuning cap. So I've just clipped this on here. I'm going to plug it in, and we're going to see if that solves the problem. Before we didn't have any. When you turned it on, you got absolutely nothing. So we're going to do a little test with this, just like this, and see what we've got. Okay. So we're plugged into the variac there, and we should be coming up here.
See weed-free long without the hassle of trying to do it yourself. Give us a day at 988-324-8873. Be sure to stop by our booth this weekend at the 2020 Green Country Home and Garden Show at Expo Square.
That's turned all the way up, so
finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack.
But it's not. It doesn't have all its volume that it should have. That could be a weak tube, and we'll probably test those. Although I maybe kind of suspect those are okay, but we'll test them anyway. And I think we'll set up to solder this back on. sometimes when you do this, I don't think you get great reception necessarily.
Search.
Are you looking for senior care for your mom or dad?
Not bad. Okay, so I'm going to take a little second here and get set up to solder this guy back on, and we'll see if that gives us any improvement. Okay, so there was a little eyelet here, and I strung the antenna wire through, and I've got it wrapped around this tube just to kind of hold it in place. And now we're going to see if we can't do a little solder work here. My soldering iron hot enough? Check that, make sure that's in place and soldered. It is. It looks a little ugly, but I think it'll be alright. So this has done its job here. So let's plug it back in and see if that made any difference at all. Okay. Plugged into the variac. On it goes. It doesn't warm up very quickly. Now we don't get anything. Okay.
Investigation they're doing already, and that other people are telling them to stop. And
Okay, that solder connection did not make.
he was at investigations that would be very helpful to the president.
Is there any music? Okay. So I'm going to take another quick look at that soldering joint or solder connection I just made, and we'll see if we can't get that secured. Okay, I cleaned up that solder connection, and this thing is now soldered on there firmly.
I was Jewish, and I sort of my religious beliefs.
Certainly not due to a scheduling conflict.
Encouraging you to get on the road to new life. Discover God.
So it's
And NSC director for Ukraine.
not insensitive, but still that's full volume, and really should be a lot louder than that. So next we'll go on to what might be causing that. I'm not sure the next steps. Like I said, I think I'll test these tubes, but I don't think that's the problem. Actually, I'll do one thing before I test the tubes. So I'm just going to do a little experiment here.
State University. You're in Ohio. Okay?
And
State University, find out
I'm going to tap around and just see if I can find...
school there. Now, that doesn't include room and board. You can put room and board in there if you want to. If you want to, either figure's fine with me.
see if I can find anything that...
You know, you need to put that into a calculator because inflation...
Do I hit a spot where the radio...
2%.
This little capacitor is in question, but...
roughly double regular inflation. And so get your
That's
stuff going
okay.
in. Get your you know, say okay, it costs $14,000 a year. I just made that up. I don't know. It's probably pretty close though.
Whoa.
University. All right, that's a year. You need 4 years of that, which would be around $60,000. Okay, what is $60,000 if you have a 3-year-old? 15 years.
All right, I got a little
7%.
spark there.
That will tell you how much you need to have as your target. Then you say, what if I put, how much do I need to put in a month in a mutual fund, and what are my mutual funds going to average?
And that is...
that will tell you if you can hit that target or not.
That's full volume.
You'll be pretty close for a baby saving about $200 a month in a decent mutual fund in a 529 or ESA.
Now, how did that fix anything?
And that'll get you pretty close to in-state tuition and some room and board as well.
And I would not have guessed that...
And so you can sit down if you don't want
this
to do
was a
those
conductor.
calculations yourself. You can sit down
But it
with
did.
a SmartVestor Pro in your area, and they'll help you do that. Click SmartVestor for any of your investing needs at DaveRamsey.com. We're not in the business. These are qualified investing professionals that we have vetted. They're over 12.
Okay, that's where the problem is.
This topic of investing with the heart of a teacher, and they'll help you get that going. But that's how you run the calculation, and that's why it's not as simple as just saying save 12%, save 2%, because we don't know where your kid's going to go to school. We don't know how that make a big difference.
Now the volume's back down. So,
you know, you're going to have enough.
okay.
And you're definitely an expensive school for scholars.
For one problem I see here is that this
That game, and that's what that will affect the math very
negative wire, or the wire going to ground,
Jessica is with us in Texas. Jessica, welcome to the Dave Ramsey Show.
Hi, Dave.
comes over here to this terminal strip, little terminal,
Yes, sir. So,
and the threads for that are just laying on top of this solder joint.
So I was at your podcast, I'm upside down. I was down and bought a Tahoe less than a year ago.
Now that's less volume than I had a minute ago.
The interest rate,
Good Lord.
you know, my interest rate might be at 15%. I mean, it might be between 13 and 15%, but we're trying to get rid of it.
Good. We'll try to get rid of it. I'd get rid of it.
Trust me, you talked to somebody earlier and I hope it blows up.
So that is apparently, I don't know whether I should rewire that whole thing. These little connections down here are okay, but not great. And I don't know if you can hear that. It's very mild, but when I had full volume, I didn't have this problem. But turning the volume all the way down, I hear a little hum. But just a minute ago, when I had full volume,
Including the car. But we also...
that went away. Oh. Now I get nothing. And I get lots of hum. Okay. I'm going to think about it. I might replace these guys, rewire this thing, and certainly put a new wire to here. Like I said, I see the braids for that wire. It looks braided. I'm not sure, just laying on top of the solder joint. So I don't know. Let me give it some thought, and we'll see what we want to do. Okay, so what seems like just a moment for you has been a fair amount of time for me trying to figure out what was going on here. So after looking at the repairs that I had here, here's what I found out. Whoever did that repair had these capacitors flipped from the way they were supposed to be. And the other part was, see that little black dot there? I believe that means there's supposed to be a connection there. The person that did the repairs did not make that connection, and if you look, this is the original capacitor that would have come with it. So there's the ground wire. It actually goes up under here and over to where that terminal was that I was tapping on incessantly, hoping that that would fix the problem. So we're going to have to address that. And the red wire, you can't see it in black and white, but I believe that is the red wire, comes over to the other part of that same little terminal block, and that's fine. But the lead it calls yellow, I believe, is this light one, and it goes, you can see, it goes up here, and that indeed ties it. Let's get you right around there. That indeed makes that connection right there. So previously that connection was not made. This wire just went on up and came up here, and that part's okay. But we need to make that connection. So that's what I've done. This is a little jumper for the ground wire to sort of there's obviously a bad connection. We're going to deal with that, but that's just to reinforce that. And then here is from the plus side of the 40 microfarad capacitor. They've replaced it with a 47, and over here to the other side of this resistor that comes off pin 7 of the 35W4. So that's right there. That connection was not made. So we're just going to turn this on. We'll see if this makes a difference for us, and we'll go from there. All right.
Come on now, give me some more, and some more money. Yeah,
it's going to be really hard
Are you doing tricks for
to hear that little speaker across the other side of the internet, but the audio does sound a little better.
The radio. And here again,
it is much louder.
A chance
Maybe still not enough, but it's a lot louder. And before, and I don't know if you could hear it before because it may not be able to be picked up by, this phone. I'm doing this on a smartphone. But when you turn this all the way down, you can hear a little hum. That's gone. It's as quiet can be.
Pure, simple, the voice of a boy, barely a teen.
Okay. So, that tells me what changes I need to do here. I was going to take these caps out and replace them, actually. But I don't think I'm going to have to do that. Plus the fact that down here on this part they've used like rubber cement, out of one of those little glue guns. This appears to be something like right in here, like JB Weld or something. Those things are going to be here 100 years from now. I'm not sure how to get that off. So, but it looks like we're not going to have to replace them. Let's check one other thing, and then we'll get started on the repairs. So, sort of for fun, I'd seen some other people use a tester similar to this. I bought this online. I think it cost me $27 to get it to my door. And it's supposed to measure whatever it is you're testing. It's supposed to be able to tell what it is and give you a reading. So I thought, well, maybe that'd be helpful to what I'm doing. So I used that to go through here and check resistors and capacitors. They were all in amazingly good condition, or good shape, or tested good, and I also I rechecked them with my good multimeter, And the thing about these is they're not supposed to be, they're not or not supposed to be all that particularly accurate. But it was amazingly accurate, so I was happy about that. So, but here's what I found in checking components. This right here is C9. C9, why is that always upside down? C9 is that guy right there. Okay? Let's see what we get. What is that? 138 ohms. So to this little tester, that thing looks like a resistor with only 138 ohms. Now, if you replaced this with a 138 ohm resistor right there, do you think that would make a difference? I suspect that it would. So the other wiring I talked about, I'm going to do, and at the same time, I don't have a huge stash of capacitors and resistors built up yet, but that one, 0.047, I got. So I'm going to do this wiring we talked about, and I'm also going to replace that capacitor, and then we'll be back and we'll turn it on and see if we fixed any problems. Okay, so with those changes done, let's turn it on and see if we've made a difference here.
To a friendly nation required as much paperwork as exporting a machine gun. Yeah. Or a...
Okay, so...
Joe, okay, we see the outline of the person, but we don't see their eyes. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
So that's better. We're getting a fair amount of volume now. It's clearer. But it's still not as strong as maybe some other radios I've got. But I think we're, for part 2, we're going to do an alignment, and I think we may gain quite a lot. Probably should say, you know, I will admit to you, this was one of the caps that I tested that I said was not good. That was this one right here. Well, I made the mistake, I think, of not pulling this tube. So this is a lesson learned, because rather than measuring across here and measuring the capacitance, I was just measuring through this filament, through this filament, through this filament, through this filament to ground. So that was not a real check of the value of this guy. Now, after I cut it out, I tested it again, and it was off, but it was not so bad. But anyway, there's a new cap in here. And also the ceramic cap that I told you looked like it had bubbled. It had gotten really hot and bubbled. We replaced that one also. It did not test well. And, you know, normally these don't go bad, right? These little guys. But this tasted, it didn't taste very good. It didn't test very well either. So we replaced it, and I think we got a lot better results from that. So here's what we're going to do next time. We're going to do the alignment. Got the instructions for that. And then we'll do the case, and then we'll be done. So let's see if I can show you what I'm going to do. So for next time, this does have some spots on it we talked about earlier, but I don't want to like put Bondo or something like that on there, and then try and sand it. And then, you know, if I did that in a couple little spots, there's a spot there, and there's this crack here, I'd have to paint it. So I don't really want to do that. So what we're going to try to do next time is, you see that crack? I'm going to try and squeeze this way, and then also this way. And can you see that? The crack, it absolutely pretty much disappears. So I'm going to try and do that, and then from back behind here, I'll put in some glue and some epoxy or something to hold it in place. And so that'll hopefully, you know, we'll put the squeeze on this little guy, and hopefully that'll look good. So, and then we'll put everything back together and we'll be done. So that's it for this one. I appreciate you all watching, and part 2 shortly.